We're starting with that breaking news again to reiterate for you the Russian president's grounded flights to and from Egypt until the Sinai crash probe is complete. He was acting on the advice of his security chief. Let's hear more about this from RT's Ilya Petrenko now joining us live. Let's get the latest from him. What is the significance of this move, Ilya?
Hi again, Kevin. Well, I can tell you that all the top Russian security officials involved in this investigation were present at this urgent anti-terrorist committee meeting behind my back. The defense minister was here, the emergencies minister, and also, of course, the head of the FSB, the Federal Security Service of Russia. And of course, it attracted plenty of journalist attention. We were here waiting for possibly some kind of confirmation after hints by some U.S. and British officials that a bomb could have been on board the Airbus that crashed over the Sinai Peninsula. We were allowed to hear and see the first 3 minutes or so of that meeting. We didn't get any confirmation, but we heard from the head of the FSB that he suggested halting all Russian flights to and from Egypt temporarily. And shortly after that, we found out that the Russian President Vladimir Putin agreed to that decision. Then his spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said that the ban will be in effect until due security measures are provided. However, he said that this does not mean that the Russian authorities consider terrorism as the main cause, the most likely cause behind the crash of that Airbus over Egypt, over Sinai Peninsula. So they haven't ruled anything out, still looking into all the possible versions.
Yeah, Ilya Petrenko there in Moscow. Thanks for the update. Well, meantime, other flights are happening. A third flight from Egypt has brought the remains of victims to St. Petersburg. Well, that ill-fated Metrojet was, of course, supposed to arrive last Saturday. Some of those killed have already been buried, with more funerals planned for today as well. Services have been held in St. Petersburg and also in Veliki Novgorod. 224 people died when that aircraft went down in Sinai. The crash is therefore the deadliest in Russian history. We went to one of the funerals held in Moscow.
We are at a cemetery near Moscow where people are about to say their final goodbyes to one of the victims of the worst ever air tragedy in Russia's history. And the car behind me is about to bring the body of the victim to the cemetery. Stanislav Sviridov was a flight attendant at that ill-fated Metrojet plane. He lived in Moscow, was married and had 2 little children. His wife, Anna, is a flight attendant as well. They actually met at work. She says it's the skies that brought them together, and it's the skies that tore them apart. So far, only 4 bodies have been returned to the relatives. So people here today are one of those very few who are able to bury their loved ones. There was an idea of a memorial to be built in St. Petersburg, where that plane was headed, and bury all of the victims at that memorial, but it appears so far most of the relatives oppose that idea. So it's a feeling of sadness and tragedy here today, but also frustration. People still don't know what caused the crash, and that's of course something that they need to understand before they can get closure.
Yeah, so many heartbreaking individual stories like this one too. The body of a 10-month-old girl who became a symbol of the tragedy was discovered yesterday at that crash site. Darina Gromova was her name. She was the youngest person on board. Here she is. Her mother posted this picture of her watching the planes at the airport. This is in St. Petersburg, before the family set out on what was their first foreign holiday together. Tragically, as we know, it all went so horribly wrong. But that picture went around the world as one of the most heartbreaking images of that plane disaster. As I say, her body now found.